This is episode 0, and welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback. Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your journey from 25 to life. I'm your host, Brian Tier. Now let the comeback begin. Alright guys, welcome back, and doing something a little bit different for this first episode. It is a solo round. I thought it was only right that in this first episode we get up to speed, get to know each other a bit better. And so what I thought I would do is take you guys through a bit of my own story, my own background as to my quarter life crisis and quarter life comeback. And just so that we're on the same page, you know a bit about me before we get really into the meat and bones of this podcast. And hopefully some of it resonates with you. I'm sure it will. If it does, please let me know by shooting out a tweet to @BrianTier. And you can find all the links that I'm going to mention in this episode and everything else you need to know at the show notes, which you guys can find at briantier.com/000. And I'd love for you to let me know some of your biggest takeaways and some of your own stories. So I guess I'll dive right in. I grew up, pretty much the normal sort of family environment. Followed all the rules, as I've said in my About page, which you guys can check out at the show notes. Followed all the rules, sort of did what I was told type of thing. And, that worked great. And I'm really grateful for my upbringing and everything we were given as kids, and did really well at school, excelled at academics and sports, always had friends around. So it was never really anything wrong. And I think that's a lot of the time why people do get sucked into certain situations, whatever they may be, is because things aren't, there's nothing wrong, so why upset the apple cart, so to speak. But anyway, I carried on like this throughout school. Same thing happened at university. I did really well, still played sport. And I was kind of ticking off the boxes that everyone tells us that we're supposed to tick off on the road to success, whatever that may look like. So this kind of continued until I got my first job in the corporate world. I was a civil engineer. And, I went to work every day, did my thing. And just as a sort of background to the story, I was, as I'm sure many of you listening are, when I finished school, I didn't really know what I wanted to study. But obviously, we're told that university is the next logical step after school. And I'm not going to get into the education system or any of that in this episode. I've got my thoughts on that. But anyway, so I was very similar to one of my older brothers, and he'd done civil engineering, and I thought, maybe that's something for me. I didn't want the typical office corporate job, which is kind of ironic because my business now is pretty much laptop based. But anyway, so I thought, maybe engineering's for me. Went off and did that for 4 years. I got my degree. And when I started working, I never had this feeling that I'd done the wrong thing. I have a motto or a theme that I like to live by, where I prefer to regret things I don't do than things that I do. Other way around. I prefer to do things that I do than those that I don't. So I'd rather look back and say, oh well, than what if. That's kind of how I like to look at it. So when I finished studying, started working, I never had this feeling of, I've done the wrong thing. Why am I here? Didn't really feel like that at all, and things were going okay. And after a while, I started noticing that this really wasn't really what I wanted to do. It became harder and harder every morning to jump out of bed and go to work. I had no sort of morning routine or anything, so I was up and off to gym or like straight to work basically. And this started to play at me quite a bit, and it became harder and harder to get out of bed in the morning. When I was at work, I would be kind of like counting down the hours till I could go home, which is not a good situation for anyone to be in. And then something else happened, which changed the way that I looked at the world and things in a big way. A friend of mine started a CrossFit gym, and he introduced me to the paleo diet and started doing a lot of reading on there. And anyway, so as I started reading more and more about this, I became more into health and started reading up more about health and nutrition and fitness and unconventional ways to do things. And then shortly after that, another event which really had a big impact on me was some friends and I went overseas on what was my first kind of, I'd done family holidays overseas and global young leaders conference at school, but I'd never been on an overseas holiday with friends or by myself. So we went off to Thailand for a couple of weeks, and that event as well just really opened my eyes to how much more there was out there and the different ways people live. And so that, coupled with coming across different things, I mean, as I was reading about fitness stuff, I started to come across different blogs. I'd never really read blogs before, and I started coming across these blogs of people that have made an impact doing what they love and made a living out of their passions. And I started to see that maybe this is something I could do. I'm not really sure what that would look like, but I had become more and more interested in personal development and just people being their best, pretty much. Since a small age, if I look back at it now, I'd always had those kind of feelings and thoughts, is that I just wanted to help people. That's just what I wanted to do. And at a stage, I thought about studying medicine, which I'm not sure how that would have panned out, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And I got to this point where it was another day at work and counting down the hours to go home. And I've been reading these blogs of people doing things. In particular, Live Your Legend. If you guys haven't seen that, I highly recommend you check it out. But people doing things that they really loved and helping people in the process and making a living in the process. And it was just another kind of day, and I was like, man, I think I can really do this. And then at my birthday, my 25th birthday, some friends and I were talking. So we'd been working for a couple of years now, and I was quite shocked that everyone was complaining about the same things. Like the working world sucks and they hate their jobs, and I actually piped up and said, if I could quit now, I would. And I had this light bulb moment that I can. And I never told anyone this at the time, but in that moment, it was like I'd made this major decision that, I can do something different here, and there's actually nothing holding me back. And so about a week later, I was at work again, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I grew up with pretty old school parents, as I'm sure a lot of us have. And I messaged my dad on WhatsApp, super, super impersonal. And I said, Dad, I need to tell you something. You possibly know what it is, but I'm thinking of resigning. And because, they'd done such a great job bringing us up and put me through 4 years at a really good university, paid for my degree, I was terrified as to what he would say. And it turns out he took the approach of support, and he said to me, I know you'll make a success of whatever you decide to do, and Mom and I support you no matter what. And he said, and I'll never forget these words, he said, if you're not growing, you're not enjoying what you're doing, and you're not adding value to the business. So there's two sides to this. If you're not growing, you're not enjoying it, you're not adding value, the best option is to resign. And with that, I got this sudden rush of exhilaration through my body, and my heart started beating really fast and my hands started sweating. Anyway, long story short, half an hour later, I'd handed in my letter of resignation to my boss without really a plan B or any idea as to what I was going to do from here. But I just knew that it wasn't at that company, in that job, in that position. And, full disclosure, I must say here that in hindsight, and I've chatted to a couple of friends and even clients about this, if you're in the same position and you're thinking of quitting your job, I would say try and do what you can to stick in it as long as possible and build up a passion project on the side. Do whatever you can in your after hours to get some traction and some momentum there until it gets to a point where you can leave. I know I'm giving out some counter advice to what I did here, but I think that is still the best option. To be completely honest and transparent, there were some pretty rough times after that, just because of the fact that no longer having an income coming in, and I think people often forget when they are in a job that they don't love that it can be seen as a means to an end, and you got to look at what that job gives you. And I just, in the moment, I couldn't do that. But anyway, I've made it work somehow or another up till now, and no plans of giving up anytime soon. So here I am, and all I can do is keep moving forward. So in that time after I resigned, I ended up going on another overseas trip back, this time on my own. So I backpacked solo through Southeast Asia. And when I was there, I really realized that what I wanted to do was in the personal development, sort of helping people improve their lives. That's really what I wanted to do. And so when I came back a couple of months later, I became certified and started working as a personal trainer, which I still do on a part-time basis now, but I never really saw that as a full-time option. It was kind of a stepping stone in the right direction, and that led to more and more reading and research into optimal living and what it means to live an optimal life. I started learning and applying different strategies and studying different successful people and seeing how they did things and applying it all to my life until I came to some sort of routine that worked for me. And I think this is an ongoing thing and something that I recommend everyone try out. Experiment with different things. Maybe you've always wanted to start a meditation practice, or you've been thinking of doing yoga for a while. Start playing around with different things you've been interested in until you find a routine that works for you and that really serves you. And I'm a massive advocate of the morning routine. So anything that you've been trying to do or wondering about, wake up go to bed, wake up a little bit earlier, and put it all in your morning routine. That way, when you go to your job, whether you like your job or not, you've already accomplished such a lot in the day that anything else after that is kind of a win, regardless. So that was that. Came back, did the personal training, and then all that kind of led into the more life coaching direction, which is where I'm at now. And so, I realized that although fitness is important, it's such a small part of the whole process, and I'm a lot more interested in things like mindset and habits and that sort of thing. So really designing a lifestyle that works for you, and designing everything else around that, and not trying to fit in your ideal lifestyle around everything else. So I don't want to keep this episode too long. What I want to do now is to dive into what you can expect from this show going forward. I'm going to be super excited bringing you guys more episodes. And basically, obviously it's called the Quarter Life Comeback. What is that? What is a quarter life comeback? So how I see it is, we've all heard about the quarter life crisis, and some people say it's a myth. Other people say it's a full-blown real thing. Whatever your opinion on that, I think as young adults in our quarter life years, we are at a stage where we're kind of ripe for really molding ourselves into the best possible versions we can be. At the same time, I think this is also a time where if you don't use these years positively and constructively, it kind of sets up a bad snowball for the rest of the journey. And, I think especially these days, there's so much pressure on quarter lifers to know everything, to have everything figured out, to know, what job they're going to do, who they're going to marry, where they're going to live. And this only adds up and builds up this pressure and this overwhelm and this confusion, which I think leads to the midlife crisis down the road if it's not tackled right now. So to me, the quarter life comeback is recognizing this position we're in, utilizing the resources we have available, and just becoming as optimal and as awesome as we can be. And to really, it's all about taking responsibility for yourself and for your own development. And just, I realized in my own journey, something that I like to say is, I realized that no one is going to make your life awesome for you. So that to me is what the quarter life comeback is all about. It's about getting clear on what you want in your life, which, spoiler alert, is anything. We can all have, be, and do what we want in our lives. It all just comes down to overcoming the fear that it's possible, or the belief that it's possible, the fear to act, and making it happen. So the first step, I think, or I say, is get clear on what you want. Write out, I don't like to use the word perfect, but write out your best possible day. What does an amazing day look like for you? Get really clear on that. Include all the senses, include a ton of detail so that you can actually feel it. And then start looking at how you can make that happen now. So that's step one, is getting clear on what you want. Step two is, identifying what's stopping you from having that. What's in your way? What obstacles do you need to overcome to start living your best possible life? And step three then is creating your comeback action plan, which, takes these obstacles into account, looks at where you want to go, and then says, okay, well, if that's where I want to be, this is what I've got to overcome. Where do I go from here, and how do I move forward? And so that, in essence, is what the quarter life comeback is all about. The show itself is going to be consisting of interviews with experts on quarter life topics, things like relationships, careers, health, habits, happiness, money, anything you can think of. I want this show to be a place that you can come to, listen, learn something new, and just walk away becoming closer to, or being closer to, that vision of what you want from your life. In essence, it's going to be kind of like a mentor network. So you can come here, listen from people who are at the top of their game, be that lifestyle experts, entrepreneurs, and other success stories of people who have overcome their own quarter life crisis and are now just, kicking butt in life and rocking that quarter life comeback. And then there will be some episodes where I share some insights in a solo round, kind of like this, but not so much my own story, just stuff to help you guys out, as well as some Q&As. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to tweet them to @BrianTier. I'll put a link in the show notes, which again you guys can find at briantier.com/000. And just let me know any questions you have. I'll tackle them all in one show every now and then when I've got enough to cover. So the show is going to be coming at you guys every week. Every Monday there'll be a new episode. So make sure you subscribe on iTunes. There'll be a link to that in the show notes, as well as leave a rating and review. That does a lot for the show to be seen by others, help others out. And then just share this along with your friends. I've got really, really big plans and dreams for this podcast, and I'm not stopping anytime soon. So share it around, get used to hearing my voice. And just let me know what you think, how I can improve. This is a journey that I'm on with you guys, and I want to just be the person creating this resource. It's not mine in any way, it's for all of us. So, let me know your questions, let me know your feedback, and I'll do what I can to put that all in this episode, as well as any guests you guys would like to see. Finally, you guys can sign up at briantier.com/subscribe. And if you do so, you can pick up a copy of a book I wrote called Do You Know You, which has got 5 great exercises in it for getting clear on what you want, who you are, and why you're here. Just 5 self-awareness exercises, which is a great way to kickstart your quarter life comeback journey. And you'll also receive updates of new episodes and articles as they're released. So, guys, that's all for me today, and I hope you stick around. Get your friends, join in. This is going to be an awesome journey, and I can't wait to keep bringing it to you. Cheers for now.